And we are back with episode number 17 of ClubCast, the official podcast of the Diamond Club. And joining us this week is Dodgers2080 founder, prospect, know-it-all from the Dodgers system, Tim Rogers. Thank you, Tim, for coming on. How you doing today?
Well, thanks, guys, for inviting me in. I'm really excited about this. Good day. Like the rest of you, I think I'm getting just tired. My fingers getting tired from hitting the refresh over and over, waiting for the passing bomb. All notifications are on, ready to go.
Yeah, obviously we've had a lot of rumors kind of going around, especially today, which we'll definitely get into. But, the winter meetings are coming up, and that's kind of what this episode is preparing us for. By this time next week, we would be in the midst, and hopefully there's some free agent signings, trades that are going on with both of our teams. Obviously, Jake's the Phillies fan, and now he's surrounded this week by Dodger fans, last week and the week before it was Mets fans. But definitely the winter meetings is where MLB free agency and the MLB offseason definitely gets going. Unlike other sports like the NBA, where it's pretty much straight off, like happening right away. Jake, the winter meetings are coming up. What do you think is kind of going to happen? Are we going to see some big guys sign? Are we going to see some people traded?
Yeah, man, it's exciting. It's nice to see. First off, that the Philly Aaron Nola like to break the market and just sign right away. And other than like these other guys. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier. These guys, it seems like they're getting close, man. We're getting a lot of rumors about Dylan Cease coming out today. Now we're getting talks about some other guys. I'm sure we're talking about down in Tampa. Otani's narrowing teams down. Teams are dropping out. We heard some teams like the Rangers were out again today. It's interesting, man. It's real interesting just because of the level of competition. Everybody's trying to, if they think they're close, they want to get in and they want to get out. They want to get their guy and get prepared for next season. So I think that we'll see things sooner rather than later, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. Tim, the winter meetings, they start next week or this upcoming, I believe, Sunday or Monday. Is at the peak of the baseball offseason? Are you expecting everything to happen?
It is the high holy week of the baseball offseason, that's for sure. We're going to have some free agent signings. We'll have the Rule 5 draft and all that type of good stuff. I was able to attend last year because it was in San Diego, and so I was able to go and see all the people. And it's kind of weird. You see faces and all that, but you don't really see much go on. You see John Heyman on his phone and Bob Nightingale doing his thing. But at the end of the day, I think some dominoes really need to fall. If you look at the way and we'll talk about them later, the Japanese guys kind of lined up where you got Otani already, but then you've got Yamamoto, who has a 45-day window, and then a week after that is for Imanaga. So there's like this week window. They got to get those things done within 45 days. So I think the winter meetings is going to be a time to go because, like you talked about, Dylan Cease is out there, Corbin Burns, of course, the free agents, Blake Snell. I wish Aaron Nola was a Dodger target. That's the guy I wanted. Right. I really did. You guys are fortunate to get him back. I think it's going to be a big one. Of course, we are all waiting for the John Heyman misspellings. Arson Judge, rest in peace to him. But I think it's an exciting time. Friend of mine, Doug McCain from Dodgers Nation, will be at the actual winter meetings. So hopefully I can get a little insight from him on that. But I think it's going to be very exciting. It's in Nashville, right? So Tennessee. It's not like San Diego where you can just go out and go hang out by the water, go surfing or whatever. They're going to be in that hotel working. So I'm excited about it. I think some big things are going to happen. A lot of dominoes are going to start falling.
All right, yeah. Well, before we get into the winter meetings and the Japanese players and everything, let's talk about some big rumors that started circulating today as we were recording this on Wednesday. The biggest one, it was reported earlier that the Yankees and the Padres are actually further progressing their discussions on a possible Juan Soto trade. I've kind of had my doubts that the Padres are actually willing to trade Juan Soto just because I still feel like they want to compete next year. And I believe there is an avenue in which they can accomplish that goal, even without Juan Soto. He's doing estimated 30 to 33 million arbitration this year. It definitely seems like that's priced out of San Diego, at least this season, just because of everything we've heard that's been going on with the loan. Sadly, their owner passing away. It seems like they're kind of at a crossroads. And me and Jake and a couple of our other guests, we've had many discussions about kind of where do the Padres go. Tim, are you buying these trade rumors with Juan Soto? Do you think he is on his way out of the Padres? And do you think he's on his way to the Yankees, which is where he's been heavily linked?
Yeah, I would, someone had said 95% chance. I actually agree with that. Their pitching staff is empty now. They're, Snell, Hader, Nick Martinez, Darvish is hurt, Seth Lugo. I'm sure Michael Waka, they're just devastated by that. And they have to they got to build a pitching staff. And I think the only way is probably with Juan Soto. I mean, shame on them for that Xander Bogaerts contract. That was terrible. So whatever. Signing Machado was fine. I get that. That made a lot of sense. And they got Tatis. So they got all these big contracts and they're too top heavy. And Soto, even though I think he's the best of all those guys right now, by far, I would say, with his numbers this last year, he's going to be the one, I guess, that has to go. And they went all in 2023. God bless them for doing that. You can't, as a fan, these people in San Diego are desperate for a World Series. They thought that Xander Bogaerts was a good signing. I mean, good Lord. So they're that desperate. And they thought that, Jace Tingler was even a good manager. And they're probably excited about Schilt and all that stuff. But I think they're in trouble, and it is too bad in some ways. But as a Dodger fan, I'm kind of happy in that way. But I think he's going to trade it. Yeah, the hot rumor is the Yankees. I don't know enough about the Yankee prospects to go. Are there prospects that are, at that AAA level that can help on the pitching staff? That's my big question, because that's what the Padres need. They need to get 2 major league ready pitchers out of this trade.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Some of the names that have been thrown around have definitely been the names that you would expect. Jason Dominguez, Anthony Volpe. They expect a King's ransom in return, and we really just don't know the actual trade value of a full season of Juan Soto, just because of how everything's been playing out the past couple trade deadlines and off season. So they definitely do need to revamp that pitching staff. I know they have some guys. Nestor Cortez was a name that's been mentioned that I heard that could go back as that major league ready pitcher that they need. But is that who you want to be headlining a Juan Soto trade? I'm not too sure. I feel like the Yankees are also just desperate to get a left-handed outfielder to pair with Aaron Judge. And it makes sense on paper, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Jake, before we move on to the next topic, Juan Soto, you've had your fair share of playing against him, being a Phillies fan, and when he was in Washington. Do you think the Padres are probably going to trade him away?
I was on page. We were on board. I mean, we were on the same page. It's tough to trade him. It's real tough to trade a guy like Juan Soto. I mean, the first time it happened, it was incredible. The second time is going to be even tougher. I think the problem is finding that team that will match up. They are not a team that's going to roll over. Like Tim said, that city wants a championship. They need to get some MLB ready talent back and some prospects back in return. They have some guys. They have, like you said, Jason Dominguez, both Oswalds, Cabrera, and Peraza, Volpe, all those kind of guys. It's really just trying to make things match up, and that makes it good for both, because San Diego's not going to roll over. They're in too deep at this point. They had that Bogaerts contract that they signed because they were bitter because Trey Turner turned them down. They have Manny Machado on that big contract. They have all these guys on these big contracts. They need to get those last couple pieces if they're going to try to fill that spot. Again, if the Yankees don't see an extension or an obvious route to more years of Soto, it'll be tough to part with three or four guys, not necessarily prospects or MLB ready guys, just a mix of them. But it's tough to find a pairing for when you have one of the best players in the league that's trying to get traded.
Yeah, I think kind of what goes against the Padres here is that there's really not many teams you can trade Juan Soto to. And it's like I mentioned before, he's due an estimate. He's going to break the record for arbitration for a year. I think the last record was Trey Turner, and now Juan Soto's looking to blow that through the roof with 30 plus million potentially. And he's worth that. He's one of the best baseball players, especially at his age. And his agent is Scott Boras. It is very rare that he would sign an extension. But a team like New York could get it done. Not only could they try to sign him for the long haul, but they can afford that $30 million that he's going to be getting in 2024. I mean, when I throw around other teams that kind of make sense that need a bat that also have a luxury of pitching, like one team is like the Mariners, but the Mariners just aren't going to pay a single player $30 million. I mean, they didn't even want to pay Suarez like $15 million, and they traded him away to the D-backs. So I kind of think it's either Yankees or bust. Maybe they hold on to Soto, try to get rid of him at the deadline, but the longer you wait, the less value you're going to get in return, even if it is at the trade deadline where a lot of teams are going to be looking for his services. It's just, I feel like you got to rip off the Band-Aid now, or you're just going all in again, and hopefully things look different. Because last year we saw that Padres team up close to him, and they pretty much look like a shell of themselves from 2022. And that's with Juan Soto for a full season. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do with Juan Soto. I fully expect him to be speculated with the Yankees for the next week. I'm still 50-50 if he actually gets traded, but I just think it makes sense to the Yankees, though.
Yeah, Yankees make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Alrighty, so the other news today that kind of excited a lot of people around the league was one Randy Arozarena. It's already been rumored that Tyler Glasnow's pretty much going to be on the trade block because he's due $25 million this year, which is very un-Ray-like. So he's a name that we've talked about here numerous times. So many teams need pitching this year, and he's pretty much linked to almost 10 teams just by himself. I didn't think Randy Arozarena's name was going to be thrown around there at all, especially due to having 3 years of control left, making pretty low salary for what he puts up numbers-wise. And the Rays could probably still use Arozarena in the outfield. So if they're looking to trade him, I'm kind of trying to see what the Rays are doing. I don't know if it makes too much sense. Tim, I want to get your opinions on the Rays and Randy Arozarena. Do you buy the trade rumors with him?
Well, I want to. I mean, I was just telling you guys the last couple of days on the Dodgers2080 experience, I've been pushing that guy.
Right.
The Dodgers to go get him. The Dodgers need someone like that. I mean, with Julio Urias becoming an absolute bad human being, Rosarina is my favorite Mexican now, I guess. He brings something, right? We've seen what he can do in October. We saw the Dodgers basically give up. It seemed like, just the looks on their faces in the first inning of the first game of the playoffs. Rosarina, I don't think that happens with that guy. I think he just doesn't care. He brings a little bit of Puig attitude, but without the extra Puig. I mean, there's just that extra that you don't want. But so willing it, I'm trying to will it. It will take a lot. We were messing around with the trade simulator last night, and boy, it was going to take quite a bit to get him. I mean, the Dodgers would have to give up some real players for 3 years of control of him, or anybody would have to give up 3 years of control. The one thing is he's a little bit older. I think he's 28 or 29 years old, so he's a little bit older. And someday, I can't remember where I heard it, but it was a really good point. Someday the Rays might need to take a little bit of a step back to rebuild, because they don't have the resources of the Phillies or the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, and stuff like that. And it's amazing what they do, right? I mean, they really are able to produce good teams, but that is the big trade chip. And And Glasnow, of course, is too. Glasnow is a little glassy, a little glass, a little fragile. He's pitched 130 innings or something as max of his career. It's kind of not something you're going, oh, I'm going to give up the farm for. But you throw a Rosarena in it, and all of a sudden you go, well, you're going to get Glasnow, so give me one of your best young pitchers, and then maybe another young pitcher, and then one of your, an Andy Paez or something like that from the Dodgers. Somebody, throw in some high risk, high reward talent. So I could see it being done. I doubt it, but I got to get my bias out of there.
Yeah, I'm definitely, you bring up a great point, because I've mentioned it, I believe, here and then on an article I wrote for Dodgers Beat for why Tyler Glasnow sounds like he's going to be on the move and maybe some other guys on the Rays. And it's because you look at the division, everybody's trying to get better. The Orioles are coming off a 100-win season. The Red Sox they've hired a new president of baseball ops to go in a different direction, a more aggressive direction. The Yankees, I mean, we just talked about in the rumored to get Juan Soto. I mean, they had their worst season in 30 years last season, barely making it over 500. You expect them to make some type of bounce back. And then the Toronto Blue Jays, they made the playoffs last year as well. They have a very high dynamic offense, and they have probably one of the most under the radar pitching staffs in baseball. It seems like everybody around them is built or trying to get better or is already there. And maybe the Rays do need to take a step back for maybe a year or maybe a 2-year span to kind of retool, rebuild, and then still be competitive like that Rays way, find some guys out of nowhere, probably some dude that's working at the grocery store down the street for me, and end up winning 85 games. Like with the expanded postseason, they could realistically still get one of those bottom seeds. But I definitely do think they will be retooling probably this offseason and next offseason as well. If Randy Rosarena, we mentioned the 3 years of control, that's like major rebuild because you're trading away a guy with that much value. Those years matter, especially to the Rays. So that'll be extremely interesting if they end up moving him this offseason. But Jake, Randy Rosarena, does he excite you? Would you want him on the Phillies? Do you think he's traded?
He's a dog, man. He's a dog. Like Tim said, he's got that edge. He's got that postseason flair. We even saw it in the World Baseball Classic a little bit. Crazy things that he can do. Yeah, man. Why wouldn't you want Randy Rosarena? It's going to be tough. I think the only real situation I see him traded is if he's in a package with Glaus now. It doesn't seem to me that that they would trade both of those guys in one off season for, even if they are retooling and things like that. That Rays front office is intelligent and they're not afraid to make moves. We've seen it before. But it would be weird to see them package or not package those guys together. But again, nobody expected Trey Turner and Max Scherzer to be packaged to the Dodgers a few years ago. Things like that. Honestly, man, he makes a lot of sense the more you think about it for the Phillies. If you look at that outfield, Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, both down to 2-3 years out when Randy Rosarena's contract will either need an extension or have him walk. They have a lot of top end pitching talent. I mean, Mick Abel, I heard this morning when I was listening to High Hopes with some of the WIP guys, Pressy Mattingly was on there, who's our assistant GM of player development now. He was saying that Mick Abel is the real deal, and didn't say it, but in layman's terms said that he was basically untouchable. But that tells you a lot. You have Griff McGarry, who's another top prospect, and then you still have Andrew Painter, who's not going anywhere, but that's a guy who can fill a hole. So you have some guys that are expendable. Even Justin Crawford, Carl Crawford's son, back in Tampa, wear his number. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. He would fit Philly postseason flair. I would like it. I just don't see it happening. I think it would need to be a package and it would need to be a blockbuster. I don't know. You guys know more about the Dodgers, mindset than me, but I don't see them going, crazy all in with, mortgaging the farm for that.
Let me ask you this, Jake. So Dave Dombrowski is a little bit different than Andrew Friedman. I don't believe in him with any of his prospects are untouchable.
Right. Right.
The guy is aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes sense. I was thinking the same thing earlier, but I was looking through SpotTrack this afternoon. The Phillies payroll for next year is $222 million. It's like 60 mil already, and that's just a 26 man. It's pretty much set. Prospects are expendable. Our development is getting better. We have been one of the worst development teams over the last decade. But I just don't know how much Dave's really got on the leash there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it doesn't seem like the Dodgers would sell the farm, but I feel like in terms of like getting a guy with years packaged along with a pitcher or someone they need, that I said it off air to you in our Twitter group chat. I said, this just sounds like a Dodgers move, like that they would make out of nowhere. I mean, no one expected them to, like you mentioned, to get Trey Turner packaged along with Max Scherzer in 2021. This is kind of similar to that, where, all right, now you're getting an outfielder. I mean, the Dodgers left field has been a platoon probably for the past like 5 years. It's been a rotating door that it seems like it's going to be that again this year, depending on if they give some of these prospects a chance. But at the end of the day, you're getting 3 years of a Rosarena. You're getting a year of Glaus now. I would say Glaus now, out of all the trade candidates out there, is probably the easiest to extend. I feel like he would be more open to an extension just because of his injury history, his age, all that. So I could definitely see the Dodgers giving up some decent prospects in for this type of trade package. I feel like a Rosarena would be worth that in a sense, because he on baseball trade values. I know, Tim, you did a video yesterday, and I checked that out this morning, and I also checked out the website again. I think Randy Rosarena's got around a $30 to $35 million trade value.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Glaus now is at like a 13 or 14. Packaging them together, you're probably going to need to get a little bit over maybe 50 million combined to get those guys, especially from the Rays. It really, the Dodgers have shown that if it's a player they really want, they will push the buttons and get it done. So it's really just saying, do the Rays really want to do this? So if the Dodgers were already dead set on doing it and they were in the talks for it, I can imagine they could get a deal done. It just depends on if the Rays really want to trade a Rosarena, because that would be kind of really out of character for them to trade a guy with that many years left. Glaus now makes sense because it's just a year in his salary. And a Rosarena is only making, I think he's only supposed to make an estimated like 6 to 7 million this year. So that's extremely cheap for a player of his caliber.
Yeah, it would be a way for the Rays to get a team's 1 or 2 prospect, number 1 or number 2 prospect. So that would get them Dalton Rushing, for sure. Glasnow by himself isn't getting you Dalton Rushing. Yeah, Rosarena will help get you. Yeah, will Rushing plus more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that kind of brings us into our next topic. So the past couple of years, the trade packaging and rumors have been circulating. A website that we're all familiar with is Baseball Trade Values, and no matter which way you shake it, it seems like a lot of trades that have made, especially this offseason and in the past trade deadlines, it seems like a lot of teams are kind of in their model overpaying for guys. So I would ask you, Tim, do you think the trade market's kind of shifted to where now it seems like to get this player, we have to kind of overpay for it because, they don't really have to get rid of that player anymore?
Yeah. If you look at, you brought it up, the Scherzer Trey Turner trade, right? That was our number 1 and number 2 prospects right there, plus a guy in their top 20 in Carrillo. So they got Keibert Ruiz, JoJo Gray, Carrillo, and then another guy that's gone now. But that was a lot. That was a big move for really a total of maybe 2 years of player control. And Trey Turner is, he's a dynamic player. I miss having him on the team. I don't miss his defense, but I sure miss his offense. But yeah, he was a really good ball player. And so I look, Rosarena is is around that caliber of a player, and to be able to get him at, arbitration values and stuff would be definitely a Freeman thing. I see Freeman this year being more risky. I think he has to stop finishing or second and third in free agents and trades. He needs to actually make some real moves this year to shake up the Dodgers a little bit. That's a very complacent team, it seems like. And I think even the front office and the management is complacent. So going out and trading real prospects is going to be it. Teams want to get that control. The Nationals, with that Juan Soto trade, that had to suck trading him. But at the same time, they got a load of talent. That's some really good ball players. That's a great list of ball players that they got. And so I think in prospects, though, if you look at the reality, how many of them really make it? Of the top 100, 20 of them are going to be solid, maybe, or all-star, or even close to all-stars. So they're risky, and prospects are suspects. And what does Casey Stern say? Prospects are nice, parades are better, whatever he says. Right. I mean, it's a great little saying, and I get it. And that's as a prospect hugger. And every time a prospect gets traded, it's like it takes a year off my life. I know these guys. That's the thing. It's very personal for me. So when they traded that trade with the Nationals, I knew 3 of the 4 guys. So that was a little like, oof.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a bunch of that, especially, looking back at that trade, in hindsight, like, we didn't get to win the World Series in 21, which is where we pretty much put all of our chips in the basket that year. And then losing Trey Turner and Corey Seager in back-to-back off seasons, it kind of hurts my heart a little bit thinking about that. So, and it's kind of still affecting the Dodgers roster construction right now. But, we gave up a lot of talent. The Nationals themselves got a crap ton of talent back for trading these 3 players. And that Juan Soto deal, they brought back so much talent that's making an impact today and will probably be there for the next couple years that are going to, I would say the Nationals are almost about 2 years away from actually contending for at least a wild card spot. And they showed a lot of promise in the second half. So, but Jake, the trade market, it seems like there has been a shift. It seems like some of these players on, I would say, these sub 500 teams, their values have gone up exponentially. Do you agree with that? And what do you do to fix that? Are trades just done? Do you have to overpay for guys now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a situational thing. I think the problem is it's hard to win, man. Like you said, in 2021 and 22, like those years, you guys balled in and sold, not necessarily sold the farm, but sold some top prospects. You didn't win, but I mean, you were right there. Like if you would have won, that whole perspective gets flipped right on its head. I think the interior motive is more important to me. In my opinion, like right now, man, if I'm the Phillies, I can give up some prospects. If I'm, the Rays or somebody like that who's develops incredibly well, has a good farm system and knows what they're doing, it's a different story. Each team's different because if you look at the Phillies for the last, 20 years, other than, the core in like 08 and the early 2000s, we have not been able to develop any prospects. You look at Mickey Moniak and, Mark Appel and his story and all those kind of guys, these top picks, just not panning out. I think we talked about a little bit off air. The extra playoff spots definitely affected the trade market a lot just because everybody thinks they're in. Instead of having, 2, 3, 4 teams that think that they can contend for a championship, you have, 8, 9 teams that can. Even more if you look at teams like the Phillies that barely got in 2022 and made it to the World Series. So now you have these teams that are like, hey, I could be, like the Nationals had a good second half of the season last year. Hey, all I need to do is get in, man. All I need to do is get in. And now if you've got, 15 teams saying all I need to do is get in, now you have 15 bidders. It's basic supply and demand.
Yeah.
It's really value in the eye of the beholder at the end of the day. Do you think you can do more with your prospects than what you would get out of it? And are you in contention now, or are you in contention later?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point with the extra playoff spots. So I'll kind of shoot that over to Tim. Do you think the expanded playoffs kind of hurt the trade market?
Well, yeah. Well, if you're a buyer, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Right.
it did. I think the Nationals get a little bit less for Soto if they were gonna, from in that deal, because the Padres they were on the fringe, and they got in only by a couple games. Um, and so, yeah, I think that I hate the expanded playoffs. It's just I'm more of a traditionalist, but it is what it is, and you got to play that game. And so teams like the Dodgers need to adjust. It's great to win 111 games. It's great to win 100, but it really sucks to win one playoff game in 2 years. And then to have a team, teams like the Phillies get hot, or like this year, the Rangers. That was a wild card team. The Nationals in 2019, they were getting ready to fire Martinez and trade everyone off, and then they freaking win the World Series. Of course you're going to win the World Series. You're going to beat the Dodgers on the way to do it, and they did that too. But it has changed it in just a different way. The price does go up because if I'm the Rays and I want to trade a Rosarina, even though I'm still a playoff team, I'm going, okay, with the Dodgers, since I know the Dodgers well, I want Emmett Sheehan, I want Dalton Rushing, I want Josue DePaula, and I want Andy Paez and more. They're going to say, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take like a Soto haul for an Rosarina and Glaus now.
Yeah, I definitely think the expanded playoffs have kind of put teams like the Dodgers, who Juan from the Bleed Lows podcast, famous saying, Andrew Freeman doesn't like to lose trades. And I feel like that's why he's kind of been in a pickle the past 2 trade deadlines, where I feel like he's offering these prospects, but he's not offering the demands that these teams are like wanting. They're saying, all right, well, we want, those names are good, but we want maybe a little bit more, that Dodgers tax. Like, if you want them, you're going to have to give a little bit more, because realistically, the Dodgers number 5 prospect would be a number 1 prospect in almost every other organization, and other teams know that. But the thing is that Andrew Freeman would rather, stand pat and rather hold on to these guys. That way he's not going to overpay for someone that he doesn't desperately want. Especially even if it's a need like starting pitching last trade deadline. It's just not the typical thing Andrew Freeman does. And I like that you mentioned that he may have to adapt, especially this offseason. He may have to kind of change the way he approaches trades now, just because the market seems like it has shifted to where now these guys are worth a lot more. You may have to give up. You're going to have to give a little to get a little. So I really am interested to see if Andrew Freeman and other GMs and president of baseball ops around baseball kind of go into that, because we've already seen a couple trades, that have kind of been, if you put it through the baseball trade value simulator, it's kind of either been like major overpay, rejected. I mentioned the D-backs and Mariners trade. That one was a lopsided one. The Braves trading like 5 or 6 guys for Aaron Bummer like 3 weeks ago. That one was a big overpay in the eyes of the MLB trade values. So there's definitely some questioning, and there's definitely some reason for why is the market shifting that way. And I definitely think a lot of it is because of the expanded playoffs, because these teams don't have to trade those guys away. Like, we had so many, look at the NL wildcard race last year. Like, there was like 5 teams that were in contention almost to the end of the season. And a lot of them had players that they could sell off, but they said, well, we're just going to stand pat and kind of hopefully we can get in there. We're not going to buy, we're not going to sell. We're just going to hopefully, if we get in, we get in. And the D-backs were kind of one of those teams. They didn't really buy. They got Paul Sewald. But other than that, they really didn't get anything else, and they ended up going all the way to the World Series. So I bet you other teams are looking at that as well.
You have to, because playoffs are a different thing. You do need to get hot. You need players that are playoff types. You can just look at the last 10 years with old Mr. Snot Rocket Madison Bumgarner carrying the team, or you look at Jocktober, right? Guys like that, or even a Rosarina almost single-handedly beat the Dodgers. I mean, that dude. Oh my gosh, what he did in that whole playoffs was just absolutely amazing. And we thought, oh, is he a flash in the pan? He's not a flash in the pan. He's a big primetime player. And so you get those right guys with the right vibe. Even the Padres last year, obviously the Phillies, Bryce Harper just said, "Hey, get on my back, let's go."
Right.
And the impossible is there. The Diamondbacks won 84 baseball games last year, and they won a lot of playoff games this year. Yeah.
Well, kind of shifting from the trade market to kind of where a lot of us have knowledge of our teams, and that is prospects. You mentioned the term prospect hugger, Tim. So do teams kind of like Andrew Freeman, like I mentioned, do they put too much value on their minor league systems that kind of hold them back in the trades that maybe they should be making?
Yeah. The Dodgers definitely protect their guys a bit. And the Phillies are going to be experiencing this too. But, the Dodgers have been drafting low forever. I mean, I think they haven't had a good pick since, I think, 2013. So that was like 13. They blew that one, that Chris Reed or something like that. It was, that didn't work. But, they have to really swing and miss sometimes with guys. And sometimes they hit. Jaron Kendall was a swing and miss, and Cody Hosey. But they've also had some really big, guys like Buehler that they connected on, and they have to protect those guys because they develop them. But they also, I think, so you see these lists. We all see these lists, and they're nice, but they're not real.
Right.
Andrew Freeman's got his own list. Dave Dombrowski's got his list. So like the Dodgers, I try to guess. I try to think like Friedman, which is, I'm not near as smart as that man. But, I go, who's his top three? And I have a top three that I think is Friedman's. And it would take a miracle to trade those guys. He's going to put up the facade that this guy and that guy he really cares about. But I think he's got this list that he won't budge on. But also he doesn't want to give up too much. Like, the Dodgers go, well, let's get a Dylan Cease. What's it going to cost? Is it going to cost Emmett Sheehan? Is that really the right thing to do when you go? You came up short last year in pitching. Dodgers had 10 pitchers to start the season, 10 starting pitching candidates to start the season. Ended up with like almost all of them hit the IL, either in the minors or the majors, and lost quite a few guys. So pitching is at that premium, and I think the Dodgers are going to protect those guys because they also know that the way pitching is. These guys are one pitch away from being done for a year and a half. We've seen it. These guys are going out there throwing their off every pitch. They're not throwing 90% and then, do like Verlander and go, okay, I need a little bit in the seventh. They're going, no, I'm going 100% the whole time. So their arms are falling off. It's all over the place. Dodgers had so many Tommy Johns throughout the system, and they know this is going to happen. So they're using a quantity and building quantity and quality to go, how do we endure through a season and a postseason to not have to, try to trade everyone at the trade deadline to get that one guy like they had to do with Scherzer. So I think that the Dodgers definitely overvalue. They protect. Friedman, like you said, he doesn't want to lose the trade. And the issue is, of course, he's won a heck of a lot of trades. He's lost a couple, but he's won some really big ones. And teams don't want to go, gosh, if I get Matt Beatty and give up this River Ryan guy, I think I'm going to rip off Andrew Friedman. No, you didn't. You really screwed up because River Ryan might be a really good baseball player. Matt Beatty's minor league guy. Yeah. He just know they know, and it's not just Friedman. The Dodgers development, the whole system is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I've actually met a lot of these people now, and they're a different breed. They're just really good at their job, and they develop these guys. So they put a lot of time and money into these guys. So I think they value him. They probably hug him a little bit too, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, I like how you like to say. I try to tell Dodger fans this, especially whenever I'm on Dodgers Beat, the Blue Blows podcast, or just talking to people on Twitter. If you want to make this a non-miserable experience, you kind of got to think the way your team operates. And with all these trade rumors going around, people think we're acquiring Soto, Cease. We're going to get Glaus now in trades. And I was like, all right, well, Freeman's probably going to give up like actually one of these top prospects because, you know, at the end of the day, why would we trade away starting pitchers in our organization when that's literally the most blatant need that this team needs? And especially like you mentioned, Emmett Sheehan, Ryan Pepio as well. These are guys that have been involved, whether in the bullpen or the starting rotation last season, and I figure they're going to be just as involved this upcoming year. I'm kind of interested. What 3 guys do you think are untouchable?
Josue De Paula, Yuendre Vargas, and Maddox Bruns.
Maddox Bruns, I like him.
Yeah, Bruns
he just
has been
get his control. He's nasty.
I think the thing with the Dodgers, though, and kind of where I guess they have a reason to trade some of these prospects, and that's kind of what I've seen on Twitter, and I kind of understand as well, is a lot of these prospects that they've been holding on to, especially in the position player department and some of the pitching, is that they're kind of getting aged out. Like some of these guys are, they're stuck in the minors, and they're 24, 25. I mean, Michael Busch, dude, we've said it all over the place. I feel bad for the guy because he's been stuck in, I don't know, quadruple A for about a year and a half now.
He's going to be 32-year-old rookie of the year.
Yeah. So I think I've been putting him in every trade package imaginable because I'm just like, can they just trade him and get him
play
a
him or
shot?
trade him? Yeah,
So,
play him or trade him. And they've done that even with the pitching, right? They have 2 million right-handed starters in their top 30, it seems like. They're just all over the place. So you can't hold on to all of them. They're going to have to move some. I think they realize that. It's really unfair to those guys to be Landon Knack's 27.
Yeah, that was one of the pitchers. And then how old is Pepio? He's
26. He's literally exactly a year older than my youngest son. So
yeah, I definitely think Michael Busch. Do you think Michael Busch is traded? Do you think anyone really wants to take a flyer on a 26-year-old rookie?
I would. I mean, I'm a big believer in his bat. I want to keep him, and I want to make him the left fielder or something. I think he could be an all-star bat. But it's the position thing that is an issue. Maybe they keep trying him at third base. I don't know, but it's just not fair to put him in the minors again next year. That's cruelty. But I think he's still a good trade chip for it. Let's take the Brewers, right? They just got rid of Rowdy Tellez, so they could use a first baseman. And the Mets that got rid of Vogelbach, so the 2 big boys are on the free agent market. Michael Busch could go to first base, play first base for that team, and I think hit 20 to 25 home runs, hitting 280 to 300 right away. And the Brewers know that. Remember, the Brewers are good at this too.
Yeah.
I mean, the Brewers are one of the smarter teams. But Jake, let's get your opinion now. Prospect hugging, is it a thing? Do teams kind of overvalue these players? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you're one of these guys that says it as well. You know, prospects are good and all, but flags fly forever. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I was 100% on Tim's, side, probably for most of my life. Protect your guys, build a system, build a team. I liked that the Phillies, kept with Bomer and Stott and guys like that they brought up themselves. But like you said earlier, these top 30 lists, man, they're faux lists. They're fake. Like, it's the MLB. The MLB, obviously, they have their scouting, they have scouts and all this kind of stuff, but you have to trust your interior guys. And like you said, Andrew Freeman, Dave Dombrowski. I love Preston Mattingly. He's going to be my new favorite guy. They have guys that they like more than anybody. And they like when they see these guys that they don't like at, 1, 2, 3, because they're like, hell yeah, the MLB's blowing these guys' trade value up. I'm still on the, you have to mortgage something. You have to give something. Uh, I thought about it a lot because we have a hole in left field a little bit. But we have a lot of guys. Like we have Carlos De La Cruz in the system, Ethan Wilson, and then of course you have like Rojas, Johan Rojas, Christian Pache, guys like that. But like, what if you went out and got a guy? What if you went out and got in a Rosarina? What if you filled that spot with a 280 hitter? I think you have to. There's a very thin line that you have to decipher to whether you're really should go all in. But again, it's a lot of stuff that we would never hear about as fans, and a lot of people that aren't even as involved as us that just go on Twitter and watch games. You know, they see, oh, this guy's going to be the next best thing. Perfect example, Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez was supposed to be the next Mike Trout. You know, he was supposed to be the next best player in baseball, and you know he's kind of fallen off a little bit. Still got a lot of value, but I think a lot of this is facade. A lot of this is, you know, building these guys up, overvaluing them. I think that's the perfect word, honestly, is overvaluing them. I'd rather have the now. I'd rather have the flag. I'd rather have the ring. I think that's the way you got to go.
Yeah, and there's really nothing wrong with that. I mean, a bunch of teams have just two different philosophies around it. Prospect hugging, you know, just because we say we want to keep a guy, especially like a homegrown guy, I like that a bit because, you know, though the Dodgers will in seasons prior have led the league in payroll, they've also had a crap ton of young talent that they've developed and brought up, like a Corey Seager, like a Cody Bellinger. Pretty much the entire 2020 Dodger team. I remember when they compared it to the Rays and then the Dodgers, it was like the most homegrown talent for each team or via trade, which, I mean, if you're going to trade guys, and especially if it's like minor league guys, I'm like, all right, that's your homegrown talent. You brought them into your system and you brought them up.
Right.
You taught them the Dodger way. You taught them the Ray way. So that's definitely something that those two teams excel at. But, you know, there are some guys that I would like to hold on to, but depending on the player, I think any GM would be willing to part. Like you mentioned, Andrew Painter. If someone's offering you a player that Dave Dombrowski thinks, all right, one, I love him, and two, he can put us over the top to win a World Series. The Dave Dombrowski I know that ran all these other teams like the Red Sox and years prior, he'll trade your prospect away. The Dodgers will do it too. You know, they've parted with prospects before, you know, in the Mookie Betts trade. We mentioned the Trey Turner and Scherzer trade. You know, they'll get rid of their top prospects for players that they 100% are buying in on. So it's definitely a term that gets thrown around a lot, but sometimes the market and the trade market just isn't working for the names that are being thrown out there, especially with the Dodgers farm system. The Dodgers farm system's deep, but they may not either want to trade them away, or maybe not a lot of teams are going to want to trade for these guys. You know, they're kind of going, everyone has a different system of evaluating players. So the Dodgers may value these guys a little bit more than other teams are valuing them. So trades, rumors, and all that, it's always kind of in the air of where you're going to get like an idea. The only time you can tell what someone's actually thinking is if I get in the room with the GM or whoever and I get their exact list of names who they want to hold on to, like Tim said. They're never going to release that except for that small group of people in the organization. But I definitely agree with the sentiment.
I do.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I was just thinking the overvaluing thing, like you said, it's unless you know what they're thinking, it might be overvalued for me, but I'm not going to go against what Dave Dombrowski says. I'm not going to go against what Andrew Freeman says. Until they're wrong, you know, it's not overvalued until the guys who actually know what they're doing start overvaluing people.
Yeah, and one of my predictions I did make of the top 30 in the MLB pipeline for the Dodgers, I expect 5 of those guys to be traded by the beginning of the season. They have a logjam. They have a logjam.
Yeah,
I got a few of those, man. They're definitely a bomb in a bad way, but you never know, man. I get one. I did predict last year. I predicted an Austin Barnes home run at like 6:23 from In-N-Out Burger, and he hit a home run that night.
That's the rarest thing that's ever happened.
That night, man.
Nice, man.
Well, it's always good to talk trades and prospect hugging and how we're valuing these guys. Let's talk about some controversial figures, and that is the pitchers in the Japanese market. There's been some numbers thrown around there for obviously the top guy out there, Yamamoto. of exceeding around 200, 250. Some even said that after today's rumblings they've heard, it's closer to 300 million than it is to 200 million. That said, Tim, are you buying in on these Japanese pitchers coming over, especially how dominant they've been in Japan? I understand that.
Right.
We talked about it before on other episodes. I've talked about it. There is some cause for concern. Do you have concerns with giving these guys this amount of money when they haven't even stepped foot on a major league mound?
Definitely. And with Yoshinibo, right? Yamamoto.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get used to saying that, and I got to get it right. So he is 25. And so let's say you give him a 9-year contract. Now I'm stealing a little bit from Doug McCain over there. We talk about this all the time, but a 9-year contract. And I'm going to take that he's going to have Tommy John surgery. And I'll explain that in a minute. So you get 7.5 years of him, and you might get 5 years of peak time before that TJ happens. Because he's right there. I mean, this guy is good. He's legit good. Now, my concerns about him, 5'10", 160, throws a forkball, and his mechanics are hideous.
Yeah.
Those are disastrous. So my younger son, when he was younger, played for Dave Stewart, the 1989 World Series MVP.
Wow.
So, and I asked Dave back then about my son throwing a forkball, and he goes, "Man, if you don't throw that just perfectly, you're in big trouble." And so I live off that, and that's why Tony Gonsolin, I knew was a Tommy John waiting to happen. Those mechanics are terrible. The way he fall off the mound, the way his arm was coming off, because it starts here, right? And so if you start messing with that wrong, and your mechanics are messed up, I think you can have a problem. So, we already know that every Japanese guy seems to come in with the split. Otani twice already now. Kenta, right? He just had it. And so I think Mr. Yamamoto is probably next, but I've kind of gone, I'm for it in that because of because of his age. And but I'm sure other teams are thinking about that too. The guy I do like is Imanaga. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. The lefty. Yeah. 30-year-old lefty. He's not throwing 95. He's throwing 92, 93. He's a solid guy, but he's not an ace. Yamamoto might be an ace. And so as a team that's evaluating for somebody like a Yamamoto, do you go, well, do I give, $200-300 million, a lot of money? Let's just call it a $25 million a year contract for 8 to 9 years at least. Do you do that, or do you go, well, let's trade for a year of Corbin Burns, or do we try for a Dylan Cease, or do we go for a Blake Snell, who's going to throw 100 pitches in 5 innings, but it's going to be good in those 5 innings, but he will not have the Padre defense behind him. Padre defense last year was really good, even with Bogarts at short, with Machado at third and Ha-Seong Kim at second. That was a lot of runs saved out there. So, and I know this, the Dodgers defense ain't even close. We got Max Muncy at third base. Lord. So, and, I know the Phillies defense, I mean, Trey Turner's average out there, I guess he's probably a little bit better than Bogarts, but a team that's going to get Snell goes, well, is he really that good? Yamamoto, it's questionable because, he hasn't thrown a pitch yet. Corbin Burns, we know, is good. He's played, with all sorts of crappy defenses behind him and good defenses too. Dylan Cease, you don't know about. So there's pitching, just put a big question mark by every one of them, just about, except maybe Burns, except he'll probably get hurt. Who knows? Right. So, we see the value though. These guys come over. Senga with the Mets, man. I'm going, why didn't the Dodgers get him? $575, right? Kodai Senga, right? Is that and he was good.
Yeah.
So and they're just getting better and better. They're developing really well over there. The big ones, what's his name? Sasaki,
yeah. That's
the 23-year-old. That's the one that I think everyone really wants. So it's another place where they're developing good pitchers. You know, we're seeing guys go overseas from the United States. They go either to Korea or to Japan, and they get better. Nick Martinez did get better. Chris Martin did get better.
Merrill Kelly.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's some good things happening over there. It's just another place to grab some talent where it's not going to cost you Emmett Sheehan and Dalton Rushing or your top guys over in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's just money.
Jake, I'll ask you the same thing. You know, these guys are looking to get big term deals, especially Yamamoto, especially with his age. Are you scared to give a guy that's never stepped foot in the States that big of a contract?
I don't know, man. Honestly, it's unprecedented for a Japanese player like that. We really haven't seen anything longer than 7, I think Tanaka was when he came over, which is another guy with elbow injury.
With the
split.
Yankees.
Exactly. But most of the contracts, are 2 to 5 years, not too much money. I mean, Yamamoto's going to get $200 million easy, at least. And it's unprecedented contract from them. Like Tim said, it's not costing you what you already got. It's just money. It's what do I think I can get out of them. I think I read of the 22 guys that have come through the posting system through Japan, 21 of them had regressed from what they did in Japan, which makes sense. Because obviously that the NPB isn't going to be as competitive as the MLB, and obviously the outlier is Shohei Otani being the best player in baseball. But I think these guys, you have to kind of expect, like Tim did. He set up what the length of the contract's going to be, what you're going to get throughout, expecting that Tommy John, expecting some sort of injuries to the elbows with the funky motions and the different pitches. You kind of have to build that into a contract. The problem is, man, in the new age with this social media and like we talked about earlier with this market shifting, these guys are going to get big deals either way. More money is being spent every day. So it's more and more risk. It's just different because you're not getting you never really had a Harper deal, like a 13-year deal or a 10-year deal, which is what you might have to do to get Yamamoto. You never know because you have so many buyers in. You might have to be, hey man, I'll only throw you 22 million a year, but I'll give you 11 years or some dumb stuff like that. It's really just planning and expecting a little bit of regression.
Yeah, I mean, at face value, I do have some pushback to it.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of the Dodgers, they're so desperate for probably an elite starting pitcher that I feel like they would probably have to, not only just for the need, but just because of how many fans are pushing back against. I feel like it's at an all-time high where there's a lot of fans that are rightfully pissed off about only winning one playoff game in 2 years. So I think they may have to give Yamamoto that type of deal. But I also think there could be another team crazier than them, like the Mets, going even higher with the amount of money, which is where he's been heavily linked. I think once you start getting from that 250 up range, I would probably say, all right, if we lose out on that, I know we're the Dodgers and we can buy any player we want. But if Andrew Freeman's not buying into it for that price, then I'm not going to buy into it for that price. Because at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, I've seen all the stats he's done in Japan, but there's a 0% certainty that he's going to replicate any of that or near close to that in the majors. And especially if you're only going to get peak that of maybe 4 or 5 years and then say he gets another, like a Tommy John surgery, like Tim's already mentioned with so many other Japanese pitchers have suffered through. So I'm a little wary. I feel like most teams are going to have a hard stomping ground where they're going to be like, this is where we're stopping, whether it's years or money. And the Dodgers, I'm trying to think like Andrew Freeman, they typically don't give long-term contracts to pitchers. I brought this up in the Believe Those podcast the other day. Do you know who the Andrew Freeman 10-year biggest contract to a pitcher was, Jake?
I
Trevor
don't.
Bauer. There's Trevor Bauer.
I don't
Yeah.
know
Trevor
shit.
Bauer. Trevor Bauer. And that was a
Yep.
3-year deal for $103 million or something like
Yeah.
that. Every other pitcher they've let walk. I mean, Kershaw in that time frame was signing 1 or 2 year deals, extensions. And then Greinke, he came in 2015. That was his year. They let him walk for 6 years to Arizona. They don't give out these big term contracts to pitchers. They're okay with doing it with position players, depending on what position they really want. Like, hey, I'll extend to Mookie Betts. Hey, Freddie Freeman's falling in my lap. I'll give him a 6-year deal. That's different for their philosophy. For pitching, it's just different. So when I see a Japanese pitcher begging for 9 years almost or more, plus the X amount of dollars, I just don't see the Dodgers really pushing for it. I see them either just filling it in from internally or trying to trade for somebody. I don't see them going in the free agent market that way. And if I was going to give someone almost $200 million, I'm with Tim and I wrote it all away. I wish Aaron Nola didn't have such disdain for Los Angeles as it was reported, but that was the guy that I would say proven starter, postseason dog. That's who I would give the money for. So I'm okay if they get one of these guys. I'm also on Tim's train where it's like Imanaga fits multiple needs for this team.
Yeah.
Not only is he a dependable starter, he's a left-hander,
Yeah.
and he has a better strikeout per 9 than Yamamoto. I think Yamamoto was around 8 or 9. Imanaga had like a 10.6 last year. So
yeah, it's the home runs per 9 that's the problem with Imanaga.
yeah. So, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel like Yamamoto is going to set it because if people get priced out of Yamamoto, you know who they're going to go to? They're going to go to Imanaga, and he's already been linked to the same teams that are linked to Yamamoto. So it's pretty much just a wait and see, but they only have that 45-day window to get a contract done. So they're going to be signing sooner than later.
Yeah, the deadline definitely affects them. I think that 45 days does. Also, Imanaga was the pitcher in the championship game of the World Baseball Classic. Can't forget about that. So,
all right. Well, we're getting closer to the end here now. So kind of like how we like to wrap it up pretty much over any episode we do, especially when we're talking about rumors, trades, opinions, all that. I definitely want to get Tim, I want to get your opinion on what do you think the Dodgers are going to realistically accomplish this winter meetings? And then if you don't think they're going to do much, what do you want to happen?
I don't know if it's going to be the winter meetings. I'm 60% that they're going to sign Otani. This is different. This is Andrew Friedman has a crush. It's a serious man crush on him. I don't know if you saw what Doug did with the pictures. He was throwing pictures up of Friedman, then he threw a picture up of Otani in the Dodger uniform, and it looked like he just had the biggest smile. I think when Friedman really wants something, he will get it. So unless someone really just goes bonkers with Otani and gives them $700 million or something stupid like that, Dodgers will get Otani. I expect them to trade some prospects. They have to. It's almost, I think it's becoming almost unethical to hold on to these guys and leave them earning the $200,000 maybe as rostered players instead of $700,000 and getting their career started. So Michael Busch, Landon Knack, those are the types of guys. They have to move them or they have to give them a spot on and just basically guarantee them a 26-man spot. So that's my prediction.
All right. Yeah, Jake, Phillies, what's their plan these winter meetings, or what do you want them to do?
Dave Dombrowski is obviously unpredictable. All in most of the time. I honestly, I said it earlier, the 26-man payroll is $222 million. I don't think a lot goes on. They had some reports today that they're looking for a utility outfielder, i.e. Kiki Hernandez. I know Cody doesn't like hearing that. You needed as Tim, apparently. But somebody like that. Honestly, man, if I had to get a guy like that, I'd go after Whit Merrifield. I think that he has a good contact tool, a different kind of hitter than the Phillies lineup, can play basically every position other than catcher on the field. If I had one more move, it would be bringing back big Hector Neris, fan favorite. Need a couple of bullpen arms. I also like Tim said earlier, Nick Martinez. I think he's a really good pitcher. We watched him last year in the for the Padres in 2022 in the postseason. So Not much. Maybe, a utility guy and one or two bullpen guys.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off of what Tim said, the Dodgers have to make trades, especially at the winter meetings, or not just at the winter meetings, but throughout the offseason. After signing Jason Hayward, their 40-man roster is full, so they can't do anything major league wise without getting rid of some guys. So they have a prospect overhaul, especially with these guys that are getting up there in age. I really do think they need to start kind of trading away these guys to get some depth elsewhere, whether it's another outfield bat that they need, a utility guy. Pitching is the big thing, but so many teams need pitching around the league that I really don't think they're going to get much within trades, because I personally don't think Corbin Burns is getting moved. I don't think the Brewers are going to be doing a teardown like everyone is predicting them to. I really think the only starter that's realistically getting moved that is going to cost a lot or a big shift is Dylan Cease, and I've already expressed my disinterest in going that route. If I'm hoping they do something, I really hope they go for Tyler Glasnow on that 1-year deal. He's not going to cost you a lot. You can get rid of, say, like a couple B prospects, and hopefully the Rays are happy, but you never know just because of the competition. But realistically, I really think the Dodgers, I would say realistically, I think Otani does sign next week. I'm going to go along with Tim. I really think it's probably leaning Dodgers, Angels, Cubs. I mentioned that before. I still think the Angels are in there just because of the comfort level Otani's had with them. And he runs the show there. I mean, if he could be his own, he could be the player, manager, and GM. You might as well just give him everything.
Jackie Moon.
The modern day, the baseball version of LeBron. He just runs the team. But yeah, I really think the Dodgers just need to make moves with their 40-man roster, and that's kind of where they've done their trades in the past. I've seen them say, yeah, this is our, I remember when they did D Gordon dirty, they said, this is our starting second baseman. And then they shipped him off the next day. So never take these guys' words.
No.
They may have plans for somebody, but they also may just try to get what value they can now. So they do have to go to work in the trade market, especially with the 40-man roster being full. But it'll definitely be a busy week next week.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, you guys have anything else?
I've got one, and I talked about it earlier because we have Mr. Tim Rogers here, the prospect expert. One guy in your system, Jake Geloff. He was he actually grew up. Him and his brother were from Delaware. They actually his brother went to Cape Henlopen, which is one of the schools that we played in baseball. Our high school played. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Jake Geloff and what you think of him, because his brother had a great season for the Athletics last year.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually had Zach Geloff and Sean McLean on my fantasy team, and they were both on at Rancho for a bit. So, Matt McLean, and then Sean McLean's his brother. So Jake, I was really impressed with what I saw. His numbers, at the end of the day, were surprisingly low, but he looked like a good third baseman, and I liked, So you can tell the Dodgers like somebody when you're drafted, and they put you right in the 3-hole, and that's what they did with him. So they like him. I think in 2 years he has a real shot at being the third baseman for the Dodgers. So very happy with him. We my guy Ryan Fowler wrote an article about him on our 2080 Dodgers2080.com website. He's fantastic. I think he's really good guy too. Right, that's just good. Getting a chance to. That's one of the advantages of getting Rancho, is just getting to know these guys. Right back at you, Jake. You guys got a guy from the Rays, Michael Mercado. So I actually coached Michael Mercado for 2 years in Forest Ranch Little League in juniors. So you guys take care of him. If you ever see him, you drop my name. Oh, Coach!
Oh, no way! That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a great guy. He was drafted in 2017, second round.
Awesome.
And he's gone through the Tommy John thing, so he might be a real good one. I still know, he had the same pitching coach as my son. So he still goes the same guy. Patrick Edwards down here. So yeah, if you ever run into Michael Mercado or the David Michael Mercado Jr., this is fully called by my son, say hi to him. Say Coach
sure.
Roger says hi.
Gotcha. Yep.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode, Winter Meetings Prep. Thank you, Tim, again for coming on, giving a lot of insight about the Dodgers, prospects, trades, rumors, all that. So how can people find you, whether it's social media, website? How can they get to you?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. On Twitter, my personal account that I mostly work with, Tim Rogers 2080. Of course, we have a Twitter account, Dodgers2080, YouTube at Dodgers2080, Instagram, same thing at Dodgers2080. So we're all over the place. We do have press passes sometimes, full-time press pass at the Quakes, partial with Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. Hopefully some spring training, please God. That's always the best. But yeah, we're all over the place. We welcome. We try to do shows just about every night, do live and things like that. So like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I thank you guys for inviting me on. This is great, and I'm rooting for you guys. As soon as we get all the links out, I'm gonna blast this thing out to my people.
Appreciate you, Tip.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and maybe we'll have you on again soon. Maybe Otani news breaks, and we just celebrate all together. All right,
Otani pod.
Yeah, let me know.
Other than that, that'll be it for this episode, and we'll see you next time.